For example, for me, one of the reasons that I wanted to do entrepreneurship is that I wanted to, like, my fulfillment from life comes from the fact that when I build something and I give it to other people and they use it, and even if that thing that I built made their life 1% better, I feel really fulfilled because I feel that is my sign of existence. And basically, if I wasn't here in this world, then this product wouldn't have existed as well. And because of that, this person's life wouldn't have had been a better life, even 1%. And because of that, then I feel really fulfilled and I feel really happy with my life, which I think money doesn't necessarily brings that happiness to me.
This is the podcast where a bit of business and a bite of technology come together. Every month, I interview entrepreneurs, investors, startup founders, and people in tech to learn about what drives them and what makes them tick. Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bacon Bits and Bites podcast. And today I'm excited to have Ardalan Benam as my guest. He is an AI scientist and serial entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Ardalan.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. And Ardalan is actually one of the podcast guests I've had the pleasure of meeting in person. I think it was late last year. Like, we connected on LinkedIn and had a conversation just because I started a podcast. So for those of you who are looking to connect with like-minded people, want to share your ideas and goals, get on LinkedIn and be active on it.
Exactly. No, it was really interesting because we were looking for a podcast that they have recently started, and I don't know, somehow we found you through LinkedIn and Google, and we just reached out and we went for a coffee, and after that we just kept in contact.
Your education. So you received your Bachelor of Science in Tehran, and then you ended up studying at Simon Fraser University for your master's. What made you want to further continue your studies? And not only that, what made you want to study abroad?
Yeah, so I studied electrical engineering under Bachelor of Science at the University of Tehran. And the last year at my university, I was mainly doing lots of image processing research projects, and that was the topic that I was like really interested in. So one of the things that I've always wanted to do to kind of which like a child dream, to be a researcher when I get older. So yeah, so that was the main reason that I did my master's, which was really interesting because I was like looking for more of image processing positions as a researcher. And through my kind of looking for different research positions, I came across this professor at the SFU that she was exactly doing what I was doing at my bachelor. So it was really a research interest. They were really aligned. So I came to Canada to pursue that and to kind of like work under her supervision. And so at that time, there was no sign of machine learning or AI in any kind of like my research. My research was mainly building image processing algorithms by hand to kind of like detect different edges, detect different faces. But it was like all kind of like from my own experiments and kind of like building the algorithms by hand. And the reason that I guess throughout my education kind of like turned into an AI scientist was that there was like one day I was like, oh, like there is this other algorithm that is exactly solving the same problem that I've been working on for like 7-8 months, which is basically at that time I was working on detecting and this other research paper they were using deep learning to solve the same problem. And what's funny is like because I realized that over like maybe over a month of research, they got better results than I did, working more than 7-8 months. So I realized like, oh, maybe I'm like in the wrong field. If I like this, maybe I should incorporate machine learning and AI, and that would be a smarter way to kind of like get better results quicker. And that was the main reason that I switched to artificial intelligence to solve the problems that I was going to solve.
Yeah, I think that was a very smart move on your part, given the fact that it's become very popular and very prevalent. We are often hear those terms artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so, for those of us who are not familiar or who are not sure of the difference between the two, can you explain in layman's terms how the two are related?
Yeah, for sure. So AI or
How the two are related?
Yeah, for sure. So AI or artificial intelligence is the overarching concept of just having intelligent machines. And that can be your fridge, that can be an intelligent car, that can be like your stove. But machine learning is a segment of artificial intelligence, which basically with machine learning allows computer programs to automatically improve themselves through different experiences. So I would say machine learning is a way to create intelligence, but it's not the pure intelligence because you can basically write different algorithms yourself and make your fridge to be more smart. But not necessarily that fridge is going to learn from the experiences that it's going through to make itself smarter.
What would you say some common misconceptions are out there about AI? Misconceptions are out there about AI, and I think it may have to do with the fact like what we're seeing in movies and TV. If some people may think that it could actually replace human intelligence.
Yeah, so I think actually that is one of the biggest misconceptions about AI that people think. So that concept that you said in technical terms, we call it general AI, and I think people think that we are close to having a general AI, and we are at the state that AI has reached its peak state, but we are not anywhere near that. Right now, we have learned to engineer certain narrow problems like speech recognition, like really well, and we have done it in a way that we couldn't imagine doing it in 5, 10 years ago. But the idea of having machines that can reason about the world in the way that human beings can, I don't really think that we have made any significant progress in that sense at all. I mean, humans can be super flexible and can learn something in one context and apply it to another. And AI is nowhere near that. And so we are like far, far away from the concepts of movies and sci-fi, that's for sure.
So, where do you see the industry going, let's say, in the next 5 to 10 years?
And the AI industry is just like moving at a very rapid speed. Like every year, there are like better algorithms, newer algorithms coming out. So it's like definitely improving and becoming smarter. There is one from kind of like look at it from like an economy point of view. I was reading this other article that AI is actually estimated to around 8% of companies plan on using AI-based systems to fill roles. So around 8% of jobs, let's say, they're going to be eliminated by AI. But the interest in being up humans to design and develop new products and businesses. And if you look at it in reality, technological changes have always historically initially diminished and boosted employment by enabling new industries and sectors to emerge. So I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be more and more positions for AI scientists, AI engineers, people who can learn and develop machine learning systems is going to open up. Of course, as these roles are getting more popular, there are kind of like lower level jobs are going to get diminished.
That's really interesting how it could potentially change the world of work. So I'm curious to know your opinion on how AI has played a role during the pandemic. And I'm sure you're familiar with Blue Dot, the AI-driven algorithm that spotted
Yeah,
COVID-19 about 9 days before the WHO released its own statement.
for sure. Yeah. Who is they have lots of data and they build this system. And also I think they're using other data from other diseases to kind of like try to model how this pandemic can go in general.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think AI, like there are like different parts of the pandemic that I've seen AI to play a role in, which is like one is just like purely predicting, kind of like detecting outbreaks and of like different of COVID. The other one, it can be just like mainly, as you said. So you mentioned the blue dot that is mainly for warning us to and kind of like alerting us before a major outbreak happens. But also AI has played a major role, I think, more on the vaccine creation and kind of like drug discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing more and more companies, especially in Toronto, that they are using artificial intelligence and machine learning to accelerate the process of different processes of drug discovery. Yeah, so I think uh, getting to the stage that we have a vaccine, if we get to it one day, I think having AI has helped us to get there maybe 10 times quicker than we could have 10 years ago.
Hmm. Interesting. So I wanted to transition over to a project, a mini project you shared on LinkedIn, originally shared on Medium, that you taught an AI how to paint Donald Trump in Van Gogh style, which
Yeah.
it sounds really cool. Could you explain to us on a high level how you did that?
For sure. So in machine learning, we have this concept which is called the style transfer. As a picture or a painting, there are networks called CNNs that can learn the patterns and the styles of a painting. So basically, on a very, very high level, what I did was that to take a Van Gogh painting, kind of like run it through the network, have the network to learn the style of Van Gogh. How would actually Van Gogh paint that painting? And then once you know this style, then you can recreate whatever image that you want with that style. So then you put another picture and then say, hey, like I want the picture of Donald Trump, the style of the picture of Donald Trump to be as close as possible to the style of picture of Van Gogh. And to go a little bit deeper on this, any picture in this kind of like a style transfer field has two different properties. One is the content of the picture, the other one is this. So in machine learning, you can separate these two from each other. So basically, what you do, you keep the content of like Donald Trump's picture, and you use the style of Van Gogh picture, and if you combine these together, and you get the results that if Van Gogh would have painted Donald Trump, this is how it would have looked like.
Yeah, that's really cool. It'd be cool to see Donald Trump in other artist styles as well. I'm just thinking off the top of head, like Picasso or
Yeah, yeah, for
who
sure.
what other artists are there? Monet and yeah.
Monet, yeah.
All right, let's talk
Yeah.
about your entrepreneurial experience. So you were part of the 2018 cohort for the Next 36, which is a national initiative aimed at transforming Canada's most promising post-secondary student innovators into leading entrepreneurs. Can you share with us what the experience was like and what did you end up building?
Yeah, for sure. So
What did you end up building?
yeah, for sure. So I think Next 36 has been one of the more influential kind of like events in my life than in terms of my life in general and also personal growth. So basically, the idea of Next 36 is not only to help you build successful companies, but I think the main idea, and that's why they call it founder development program rather than an incubator and accelerator. The idea is that can we find people who have the potential of becoming successful leaders or successful people in their career, whatever they're going to do, and plant that seed and give them essential tools so that they can do something extraordinary in the span of next 10 to 20 years. And can we make this environment in Canada so we can keep these people in Canada and create this community again in Toronto or in Canada in order to take entrepreneurship in Canada to the next level. And so that's the general idea of Next 36. And yeah, I don't know where you want to go. You want to know about like what I built inside
Yes.
Next?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Next, I built two different companies, which to this day, one of them still exists. And I think this one is more interesting for this conversation, which is I built a voice bot for restaurants. So you know how you call to restaurants in order to get a reservation or order takeout,
Mhm.
and the person on the other side will pick up the phone and basically take your order or like take your reservation. So basically, what I did, I used natural language processing to automate this whole process. So instead of a restaurant owner or an employee picking up the phone, my bot will pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, how can I help you?" And then you're like, oh, I want to order this and this and this, or I want to make a reservation for two at this time. And it will get all the necessary information from you, put it in the system, and basically that's it. So it's like eliminating that person who has to pick up the phone and making it cheaper for restaurants.
Yeah, for sure. Just because I'm thinking like how a restaurant operates, especially during their peak hours, it can be so busy. There's so many moving
Exactly.
parts, people, so many different directions. They sometimes they don't have time to, or sometimes you're waiting for a while to actually have someone pick up the phone
Yeah,
and take your order.
exactly. 100%.
So prior to the next 36, were you considering entrepreneurship or thinking about it, or do you feel that program kind of helped light the fire?
No, I've always been very entrepreneurial, always looking at different projects and like people with this kind of like mindset that they truly want to do entrepreneurship for the sake of doing just entrepreneurship. And they're like very sparse across Canada. The majority of the people who graduate from universities, they want to find a job mostly in an American company or a good Canadian company and just make money and have a happy life. But for me, that wasn't enough necessarily. And to be honest, I did my master's at SFU. I kind of like felt lonely because there were like there weren't that many people that they truly felt like this. And then, but when I came to next, I was like, wow, like every single one of these 36 people that they have been chosen from different cities of Canada, they think exactly like me. And to this day, still, many of my best friends come from that network because I feel that I just get connected with them on a very deep level. So I think it was that network of other entrepreneurs or other not even entrepreneurs, other people that they very deep level. So I think it was that network of other entrepreneurs or other not even entrepreneurs, other people that they have like kind of like an entrepreneurial mindset
Hmm.
that kept me going because then you have this support group, then now you're like looking up to all of your friends because one of the things that is really hard when you start entrepreneurship or when you want to do entrepreneurship is that you always look around the closest people to you. And you know there's this thing that they say you are the average of the closest five people around you. So that is exactly
Hmm.
true. So if you don't surround yourself by other entrepreneurs, even if you're like the most entrepreneurial person on the planet, eventually those people around you are going to bring you down because those are the people who you're looking to on a daily basis. And that makes the journey very, very difficult because not only you have to be resilient on the way on whatever problem that you're facing with your idea or whatever problem that you're facing with your idea or with your company, but also you have to be resilient about the way that you see, oh, George, your friend is making 100K per year, and now you're just living off of nothing and eating ramen, and then and then you had at one point you question yourself. You're like, why am I doing this? Like he's having a happy life, why I cannot have that happy life? And if you're not resilient enough, at one point you break through it. I mean, you have a breakout session and you were like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's the majority of the reason that for people when they go to entrepreneurship, they after like 1 or 2 years, they basically quit because of all of these different reasons.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the fact that they quit after 1 or 2 years is really early because it's those first few years of being an entrepreneur that kind of help define you. And you kind of you add to what you're talking about. You are the average of the five people you surround yourself with. And it's true, like you can have your friends who are working the 9 to 5 and making the good money. But at the same time, if you don't have people who understand what you're going through, who are currently going through it, or who have been through the process themselves, it makes it harder to
Yeah,
stay motivated and keep going.
exactly.
Okay, I wanted to talk about one of your current ventures, Podeon, that you co-founded, an online platform that enables you to have access to audio courses to learn compelling topics from world-class experts. So how did you come up with that particular idea?
It's interesting that you ask this because I think one of the things that I wanted to get across in this conversation is there's a specific topic that I want to talk about. So the majority of the people that I talk to that they want to do entrepreneurship, they're like, "Oh, I have this great idea," and like 99% of the idea that's going to make them millions of dollars, and they don't understand the fact that entrepreneurship and starting a company is not about an overnight $1 million idea. It's more about the journey of you starting with something, liking a space, and pivoting until you find something that you really like and is making you money, and like they're like customers that are banging on your door. And this was exactly the same journey. So we were like, oh, podcasts are really cool. I listen to podcasts every day. And so we were like, okay, we want to do something in podcasting. So we went on, kind of like learned about the industry a little bit. And we were like, okay, advertisement is a big deal in podcasting. We were like, lots of smaller podcasts that's hard for them to get advertisers because their numbers are not that much. So if we can automate this whole process of advertising on podcasts through dynamic advertising, then that would be great. So that was our original idea, which is like totally different than what we described. And we went on, did a bunch of research, and worked on it for like 1 or 2 months. And that's how I contacted you for the listeners who are listening. And yeah, so then we realized, then we had a hypothesis that this is going to be viable, and we realized that the technology, the infrastructure of like the podcasting industry in general doesn't give us that ability to build this technology around it. So we decided that we want to try something new, and still we're like really interested in podcasting slash audio, but then we're like, okay, what can we do with this? So one of the other things that we like, one of the other markets that we were like really interested in as well was online learning. And we were like, oh, there's this concept of online learning. Lots of people are like listening to podcasts, but podcasts are not necessarily like listening to podcasts, but podcasts are not necessarily a good structured way of learning. But people, they seem to want to listen to audio, but there is no way for them to listen to audio courses. So this was the time they're like, oh, maybe audio courses can be a thing. So we built Podeon, and Karen came on board as one of our early instructors and taught a course on networking. And we had like a bunch of other instructors. Right now, we are finishing building our product management course. And so we are moving forward, but through this whole journey, it's not about us building a business at this point of time. It's us about proving or disproving our hypotheses of this business. And this is really important. Like whenever you want to start a business, you don't immediately want to go and say, oh, I want to go and start this business, go and do all of the things that a person who has a legitimate, that you do experiments, is that you form a hypothesis. We're like, oh, for example, for us was, oh, people are interested in learning over audio and they're willing to pay for it. And that was our hypothesis. And still, to this day, we're trying to prove it or disprove it. And there's nothing wrong with this being disproved, because then we have learned something new from the market. And again, talking about the journey is all about these learnings that you were like, oh, people didn't like to learn over audio. But then for you to get to that point, you have to talk to your customers. You have to talk to all of the people who have paid you so far. And if you see most successful companies like Hootsuite or, for example, Shopify, none of them started with the idea like, oh, this is my idea, and then I'll go 100% on it. All of them, they started with something, and then they realized that they have this feature that they just like built randomly, and they never thought that it's going to add any with something. And then they realized that they have this feature that they just like built randomly, and they never thought that it's going to add any value. But that feature became the core of the company. And it's really interesting because you never know what the market wants until you go and like talk to them. So the whole point is about forming hypotheses, trying to prove them or disprove them, And if you prove them, then that's perfect. Then you have a business. If you disprove them, you have learned something new that you can form a new hypotheses and try to prove that or disprove that, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's like a complete surprise sometimes what your customers end up wanting or who your customers end up being. And to be honest, I think that Podeon has the potential to gain a lot of traction and become popular because you're taking two very popular things that people are consuming right now during the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're listening to a lot of podcasts and some of them may have so they're taking a lot of online courses. And as we were talking about prior to recording this podcast episode, how much I'm not a big fan of doing video. And when you had reached out to me about audio courses, I thought, well, this is great. I already have some experience speaking on podcasts. And I find too, a lot of people learn different ways. Like some people may prefer to learn through watching videos, whereas other people, they may prefer or may realize that they're better learning things through audio.
Exactly. And also just producing audio is much easier. You don't have to, you can just be in your pajamas and talk in front of your computer and nobody will know.
Yeah, definitely. So since I wanted to just add on to the topic of online learning, what would you say the pros and cons, what are the pros of online learning and what are the cons?
It has lots of pros. You can learn lots of different things from great content from around the world for a very cheap price. Traditionally, you had to go to university, you had to sit down in the classroom, you had to be there for at least 2 to 4 years to complete a degree. Right now, if you want to be a software developer, you can basically learn the whole thing in the matter of 4 to 6 months from zero. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the big cons, and it's really good for people who are motivated and they know what they're doing. And talking about that, we go to the cons. So the major problem with online learning is the motivation part. So you see lots of people come and register in courses, but they never come back again, or they never complete the course. And the reason is that, and this is why traditional universities again work so perfectly for these people, because people in general, they want to have someone to create a schedule and form a habit around them. But the majority of the people, they don't really know how to form habits, and forming habits is hard in general. And that is what happens. They get distracted by this and this, and just like learning itself can be a hard thing to do. And 2 or 3 months pass and kind of like realize they were like, oh, like I registered for this course and never actually followed up on it. So I think that's the majority. Us talking to our customers about like what are the problems of online learning in general. Number one thing that comes up is always the problem of motivation. I'm not motivated enough to complete the course that I have taken. And that is also one of the problems that we are kind of like thinking at Podeon, that how can we tackle that problem in general.
Yeah, I almost feel that there should be a course on how to take an online course.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or our course on forming good habits, how to take an online course.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or our course on forming good habits. And I'm pretty guilty of this too as well. I love learning a lot of different things. I have a lot of interest and I'll do a lot of courses. And at the same time, I find myself, I struggle to have that motivation and that discipline, even though I, have good intentions, but I find myself like I'll eventually complete the course, but it takes me a lot longer than I had anticipated.
Yeah, well, because your motivation comes from your willpower, and our willpower is not an infinite resource. So basically, you just have to form habits so you don't have to rely on your willpower anymore. But it's hard, as you said, it's a super difficult thing to do.
Are there any particular skills that you would recommend for people to learn during this time?
I think if things are opening up, I think technical skills like coding, website development, being a designer, anything that is related to the digital world, I think at this time or moving forward is a great skill to have. Because with this whole pandemic, everything went virtual and everybody's working from home. So for people who work on digital things, that's a great opportunity because now I can basically, before my job opportunities were only limited to companies in Toronto if I'm living in Toronto, but now I can basically go and work with a company in Vancouver and still live in Toronto. And that is a normal thing right now. And I think because of that, for people who basically have a digital skill like software development or a designer or whatsoever, these people will have like bigger job opportunities as we move forward. I'm not taking any online courses. I'm actually creating an online course on Udemy. I'm creating a machine learning course on Udemy for people who don't know machine learning, who want to kind of get on and kind of like learn the basics and start coding.
Oh, very interesting. I just want to circle back to being a co-founder. What are some of the things that people should consider when bringing on a co-founder or building their team?
So it's a really complicated question. But if you ask every different the person that they have gone through the journey, probably they will give you the different answer. But for me personally, the people that I want to work with them, I want them to be people who I can enjoy spending time with regardless, right? So I have this test for myself that when I want to find a co-founder, I start working for them for like 2 or 3 months, like trial period. See, the main thing that I'm looking for at that time is that if I'm like in the middle of nowhere, I'm an island, there's nothing else to do. Can I spend like 1 or 2 months just with this person? And will I still like enjoy hanging out with this person? Because one thing that you have to realize when you start a company and actually get serious about it is that you end up spending so much time, 10 to 12 hours per day with these 2 or 3 other people who you're starting your company with. So it's really important that you have that connection, kind of like chemistry between all of you. And that automatically creates that team dynamic, then that kind of like makes everybody sticks to each other.
Yeah, it's definitely like having another relationship. Like they become like your family, or you can like consider them your spouses.
Yeah.
You're married to them.
No, it is exactly like a marriage, and when, yeah.
You're married to them.
No, it is exactly like a marriage, and when you have 2 or 3 different co-founders, you have 2 or 3 different spouses at one point, and you have to learn how to manage expectations, manage your relationship with all of them.
Yeah, 100%. What are some key skills or characteristics that you feel people would need in order to become successful entrepreneurs?
So here's the thing. I don't think it's a skill. I think it's a mindset. The majority of the people that I see that they go to be an entrepreneur, they go to start their own businesses and they fail. The reason that they fail is that the main reason that they want to be an entrepreneur is to make money. And one thing that you realize really quick in your journey of entrepreneurship is that if your goal in life is to make money, which is totally fine, entrepreneurship is basically the worst way to get there. There are so many easier ways that you can make so much money, and your life will be so much easier without all of these stresses and all of these things, that if your pure goal is to make money, you should go and do those, not entrepreneurship. And that is, I think, in our society right now, entrepreneurship is this like hot thing, like everybody wants to do it and everybody's like doing it, is super cool.
Yeah.
And everybody who talks about entrepreneurship is like, oh, like I want to go do entrepreneurship because I want to make the big bucks, or I want to, they always envision that kind of like millionaire lifestyle with the Lamborghini and like beach houses and stuff. But that is not the case. Like for the majority of entrepreneurs, they fail, and the majority of entrepreneurs, even they come up with lifestyle businesses and they just like live a normal lifestyle. There's only maybe 0.01% of the entrepreneurs that they get to that point. And if you think about it, if you put that much work hour that they did into literally anything, even if you're a janitor, you be the head of janitor, I don't know, of the White House, and you're making millions of dollars. something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like that concept. So it's not about just like this magic pill that you become an entrepreneur and like you be super rich. If that is your goal, basically you shouldn't do entrepreneurship because you're gonna fail 99.9%. Maybe if you get lucky, you won't fail.
Mm-hmm.
But if your goal is to, for example, for me, one of the reasons that I wanted to do entrepreneurship is that I wanted to, like, my fulfillment from life comes from the fact that when I build something and I give it to other people and they use it, and even if that thing that I've built made their life 1% better, I feel really fulfilled because I feel that is my sign of existence. And basically, if I wasn't here in this world, then this product wouldn't have existed as well. And because of that, this person's life wouldn't have had been a better life, even 1%. And because of that, then I feel really fulfilled and I feel really happy with my life, which I think money doesn't necessarily brings that happiness to me.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel I've learned over the years. Growing up, I originally thought that success was all about the money, but the older I became and the more I dabbled into different things such as entrepreneurship, I realized, also the idea of building something or like having purpose, creating
Yeah,
something with purpose is so much more satisfying. And eventually the money will come, but yeah, it's important to not just focus on that.
exactly. So the money will be the result of your success, but in life you'll never get what you chase with all of the things. If you go into entrepreneurship because you want to chase money, it's gonna be unlikely that you get it. But if you put your focus again, as you said, on the mission and on building something meaningful, the money will come for itself. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, in addition to creating your own course, building Podeon, have you read any books recently, or can you suggest or describe one book that has changed your life or has changed the way you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think one book that definitely affected my day-to-day life was this book called Power of Habits. And I don't know if you have read it or not, but it basically talks about how like 95% of everything that we do comes from our subconscious mind and is based on our daily habits, and we don't necessarily think about them. And that goes from checking your social media every hour, that goes from all the way to which route are you going to take to go from work to home. And you see that becomes really powerful because if that consists 95% of your life, that means that naturally you have only on a daily basis, if you don't work on your habits, you only have power over 5% of your time. And that's why many of us we don't realize that, and we are like, oh, we are working so hard, but I'm not getting to places that I want to be as fast as that I want. The problem there is that the majority of people that I've talked to is they have bad habits in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important on how to recognize your bad habits and learn how can I form new good habits and eliminate those bad habits instead.
Mm-hmm. So, looking back on your entrepreneurial journey and career path so far, was there anything that surprised you along the way?
I think in terms of my entrepreneurial journey, I realized that it's much harder than it seems. You come out of it as a stronger person with a stronger character, but oh man, it's so difficult. It's one of those things that you look from outside and kind of like you see the tip of the iceberg and you're like, oh, I wonder how could it be? You just like go there and like you hire people and you manage them and they build a company for you. But it's a very stressful job that comes with its own rewards, but at the same time, it has many different difficulties. So I think that is one of the things that I learned. The other thing that I learned was the thing that we talked about, which was basically to get rich is not, it shouldn't be your goal as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And my final question is, if you could have a coffee or video chat with any entrepreneur in the world, who would it be and why?
I think there are like two people in the well, there are like many people that I have respect for, but the main two one, as trivial that might sound, is Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, which I think it will be one of them. I can't decide which one. But the main reason is that they have both of them, and they have gone from basically they are self-made entrepreneurs, and that is what I'm really interested in. Is like, how did you build this resilience as a solo founder to build this, and how did you get to the place that you are? And basically, I want to learn from you, even if I can be like 10% like you in my daily practice.
Yeah, for sure. Those are really great choices. I would love to be able to like pick their brains.
Yeah.
If people wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do, where can they find you online?
For sure. I think LinkedIn is the place that I'm like mostly active in. You can find my name, Ardalan Benam, on LinkedIn, or I also included the link here. I usually post about my machine learning projects on Medium, and I post them on LinkedIn as well. And I think in a month or so, my Udemy course is going to be finished. So for people who are interested, they can find out about that on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today and sharing your insights on all things artificial intelligence and entrepreneurship.
Of course, it was great talking to you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and stay tuned for more episodes. Ciao for now. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to the podcast. I would love it if you could subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and share this podcast with your family and friends. You can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Bacon Bits and Bytes. That's Bytes with a Y. And on Twitter, it's Bacon.